the hardest decisions have the greatest reward, right? Because I could have settled and allowed myself to be held back and let self-doubt hold me and imposter syndrome hold me back. And, who's to say where I would have been, right? I'm sure I would have been on some variation of the path I'm on now, but I wouldn't be where I am today.
Success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about living a life that reflects your values and priorities. Welcome to Engineer Your Success, the podcast that helps you lead with intention and live fulfilled.
I want to welcome you to the Engineer Your Success podcast. My name is Dr. James Bryant, your host for the show. I'm glad to have you here today, and we have a very special guest, Babatunde Onadele Jr. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm blessed. Looking forward to having an engaging conversation.
So I want to jump right into a topic that I think is near and dear to you as well as our listeners, and really it's mentorship. So how has mentorship, or what role has mentorship played in the development of your career?
Mentorship has been huge for me. Even in high school, getting mentored by the structural engineer inspired me to go into civil engineering. Seeing him go about his business, how passionate he was, the field was exciting. And then once I started my own journey into college, into construction, I gained mentorship through my various internships, and it really helped shape the career that I wanted to have. And as I became a professional, a lot of the opportunities that have been presented to me that I've been able to seize were through relationships that I've had with mentors, whether it was them directly providing me opportunity on a project to gain exposure to a different area that I hadn't had an experience before, or indirectly championing me in rooms that I wasn't in. And that led to me having a seat at the table, or a voice, or being recognized, or being able to step into a role that maybe others felt wasn't right for me at that time. And so it's pivotal.
So let's talk a little bit about your career path. So tell us
Yeah.
about the first job and just that journey that you've been on.
Yeah, the first job, I remember that. So I was really intentional about, I knew school was a stopping ground to get to my career. And so I had internships all throughout my collegiate career. My last summer, I had the opportunity to intern with my first employer, Block Construction. I worked through my last semester, senior design class, started full-time as a project engineer, and really got to work. I was fortunate to be put on, unique projects of different types, work with multiple project managers and teams. And it helped me grow because I had a really low safety net. That kind of trial by fire allowed me to gain real tactical experience. When a kid burns their hand on the stove, once they know it's hot, they don't do it again.
Got that right.
And so for me, being able to get those experiences and things that maybe had I been more sheltered on, it really accelerated my career. I worked as a project engineer for about 3.5 years, was promoted to senior project engineer, and then shortly thereafter, project manager, which was really in our space, the milestone benchmark. Once you're a project manager, you manage your own projects, you have your own teams, you're a mini CEO of that project. And so that was really cool. And I was the project manager probably from year 5 to 10 when I was at Block before I made a change. During that time, I got the opportunity to mentor countless project engineers and interns who I'm still in contact with today. The construction industry is such a small space that it's like 3 degrees of separation.
So you were there for 10 years. What was the reason for the shift or change?
Yeah. For me, I've always considered myself to be an ambitious person. There was a misalignment on where I felt my progress and development should be versus the timing they had. It was an opportunity for me to realize that I believe I can do more and I'm ready for more, and finding a pathway that would allow me to execute that, which then led me to Core Builders.
You were there, you wanted more, you felt it was the next time for you to step up in your career and do something different. That opportunity was not showing itself where you currently were. So because there may be somebody that's listening at that stage, considering, am I going to try to make it through with the current employer that I have, or am I going to strike out to do something different? So what were you thinking during that?
It was the toughest decision that I had made in my professional career, obviously being someplace for a decade, starting your career, having a lot of milestones there. But for me, it was a matter of, do I feel honestly that I put in the work to be afforded such opportunities? In this case, being more specific, it was managing multiple projects. In our space, taking that next step is either managing more complex projects of larger dollar values or managing multiple projects, multiple teams, which really allows you to stretch yourself. And so that was the opportunity I was looking for. And I truly felt that I had put in the work for it. I was intentional about that because, to your point, speaking out there, the grass is greener where you water it, right? So it's definitely one of those things where you have to be self-aware enough to look and say, okay, well, did I do what I needed to do? Have I taken the steps to do it? Because it's not always they don't believe in me. It's not always that. And so for me, having that conversation with myself first, and then with others, counsel from my mentors, a conversation with my wife, it felt like it was the right decision for me to do ultimately. I made that change. It's almost going on 4 years now. And looking back to where I am today, it was the right decision for a multitude of reasons. It was the direction to go. And I think what I've learned from that is that the hardest decisions have the greatest reward, right? Because I could have settled and allowed myself to be held back and let self-doubt hold me and imposter syndrome hold me back. And, who's to say where I would have been, right? I'm sure I would have been on some variation of the path I'm on now, but I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yes. So let's talk about what are you doing today for Core Builders?
So I've been here for 4 years. When I started 4 years ago, I came in as a senior project manager, and now I've been blessed to serve as the vice president of operations. For me, it's an opportunity of combining both my passions. One, passion for construction and the industry and the things that we build and create, and also my passion for mentorship and putting others in positions to be successful and providing opportunities. And so in this role, I'm elevated enough to shape a department, shape an organization, shape a culture of how we operate within our operations department, and also provide that resource and serve as a champion for others who are coming up in their career paths and helping them be a sounding wall for things that come up in their journey along the way.
When you look at your journey, what's the biggest opportunity that you've been able to take advantage of?
I love the way you phrase that. Yeah. So the opportunities there's a bunch of them. But for me, the biggest opportunity is really understanding the decisions that I make today and how they impact things from 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, as opposed to when I was in a different role. Maybe I was only looking days, weeks, maybe months ahead. And it was only it had a smaller ripple effect. If you throw a rock in a pond, a small rock, it has a small ripple. Now, the decisions and things I'm involved in, the magnitude is much greater and it impacts much more people. It's across the organization and all our projects. Being mindful and intentional about that when making decisions or providing feedback and understanding the weight that comes with that.
Everyone expects you to have all the answers, but who's asking you how you're doing? Who's helping you think through your challenges? Engineer Your Success Insiders is my private podcast designed specifically for you. It's like having a coach in your corner focused on helping you win at work and at home. One story, one insight, one action that you can take, all wrapped up into real coaching insights that you can use. Join at engineeryoursuccessnow.com/insiders. How has this shift impacted the other side of your life, which is home?
Home life is good. I think it's always an adjustment, right? There's been different adjustments. So as my schedule and commitments have shifted, I've had to make sure that I communicate that with my family. One of the rules my wife implemented was no phone calls once I enter the house. And so even if that means, if it's 5 o'clock and I'm in the car and finish a conversation in the car, once I step in the house, I'm present. I'm a father, I'm a husband, and that's my number one priority, creating that separation. was key. And then just understanding, my kids, they make fun of me. They pretend they're at work. They say, "Oh, I'm Babatunde and I'm on the phone and I'm da 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 da." And it's so interesting because although they're making fun of me, for me, it feels like a win because they see what I'm doing. They know that their father is dedicated and passionate and putting energy into something that's making a difference. And so that's a skill and something that they're going to carry with them in whatever spaces they go. And so it all boils down to communication. We've all had the Zoom periods where kids popping up in the screens. And so I've created provisions against that, but understanding that that's a part of it when you have young kids and just being able to work through it.
So what's the story behind the rule?
Yeah, it wasn't anything major. We were getting ready to start dinner and I would pick up my phone because
Yeah.
somebody would call me. Going back to the statement about, is it urgent? It doesn't need to be taken care of now. It's like, well, it's 6 o'clock and this could probably wait till the morning. I think that happened one too many times when we were about to start dinner. And she said, "Hey, how about you taking calls before you come in the house?" She said it just like that. Very nice. And for me, it's been helpful because it helped me create a boundary that I didn't recognize was slipping, right? It was just one of those things where you're in this position now. You need to be available. You need to, be able to take care of things right in that moment. That boundary was eroding for me. Sometimes you need others around you to recognize those blind spots and recognize that blind spot I had and shore that up. For that, I'm thankful. And that ties back to, why I'm able to win at home is because there's boundaries in place and someone who holds me accountable for the things that I say I'm going to do. And that's both professionally and personally.
And I think that's important that you've pulled your family in, you've communicated with them to let them know what's going on. And whether explicitly or implicitly, you've given them permission to hold you accountable. Not everyone wants to be held accountable. Okay. And when things start slipping and it's brought up, some people become immediately defensive. Why are you always talking about me being on the phone? These conversations happen. This is real talk. Many of my clients don't even know that they're being defensive because those boundaries are eroding away. Nobody likes to be reminded when they're not living up to their own standard.
And that's tough, but it's the truth.
When you think about the things that you're navigating, growing family, rising career, high level position, what are some things that help you see, take advantage of, and be prepared for opportunities?
The quote, when you stay ready, you don't got to get ready, right? And so for me, it's being present in the moment, but always looking forward. In order to do certain things, you may need to have a baseline of skill sets, right? And that's non-negotiable. If I know that's something that I'm targeting, whether it be today or 6 months from now, I'm going to start educating myself or putting myself in that place. Even in this specific case here, when I found out that the opportunity for this role may be coming available, I immediately started talking with my senior vice president and wanting to gain understanding of me about this role. What it is that you do every day? What do you encounter? What are the things that keep you up? I took it a step further and reached out to other CEOs and presidents of general contracting companies. I took them out for coffee and wanted to ask them about succession, leadership, and
Mhm.
qualities that make a strong executive, and how do you shepherd a culture? So, you know, when I prepare myself from 6, 8 months out, when the opportunity came, I was confident, not that I knew everything, but that I had put in the work to be able to speak to my abilities and why I would be successful at the role. And it's those types of that preparation that allows you to be able to seize those opportunities and seize those moments when it's like, well, can you tell me about what makes you think you can do this job? And it's like, well, actually, I've been doing 80% of this job, unbeknownst to you. And those types of things really add depth to your.
What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from that preparation process as you were talking to these other CEOs? What were some of the best pieces of advice that you received?
I think talking with a couple of them, one of them told me really it's just understanding the big picture. And the big picture can look different depending on what perspective you're looking at it from. The big picture from my team standpoint may be different than that from our clients, which may be different from my wife's. They all overlap in a Venn diagram. So it's important to take a step back and see the priority for the respective group and how you can impact each of those. That was a good one that stuck with me. The second one was understanding what it means to shepherd a company. And that specific term stuck with me because when you think about it, you think about a farmer literally helping guide to a destination. If you're not in line and get distracted, things can go awry. There's another level of discipline that you have to have as a leader to be able to make sure that your team stays successful. And successful is in many forms, right? Successful in terms of obviously profitability and project success, but also successful as individuals in their professional, personal development and their things that they do outside of work, their extracurricular activities, things that you can impact as an employer that you may not even be aware of. And so, yeah, that's a heavy responsibility, but one that I take pride in because it's special.
There are many leaders that I talk to that sometimes struggle with part of what you said, and that's the inclusion of the personal goals or the personal things that their employees want to do. One of the things I'm constantly reminding them is that they're people too. They have goals, they have dreams, and they're not just pegs on the board. They're not just numbers. They're not just generating revenue. They have lives. And you have to approach them from that perspective to be able to address both. Another question that I have, what tools or things do you use to help you deal with the stress of the position and the stress of where you are in life?
It's all about the routine. I understand myself well enough to know when I'm getting to that point. I told myself one word I don't use is overwhelmed. I'm never overwhelmed. I may be stretched thin, maybe extremely busy, things may be tight, but I'm never overwhelmed. And so for me, it's in the routine. I'm a morning person because I feel like that's my quiet time. So I'll set my alarm 4:35, get my workout in, and then start my day. Even if I have a lot going on, if I'm starting my day like that, it allows me to lean on that and know that I'm starting off on the right foot. You can't control the rest of the outcome, but in that one moment, being able to control that is really helpful. Something else that I do is just taking a moment to pause. I'll have 30 things to do. My whiteboard has about 50 things on it and writing them down. So they're not just swirling around in my brain, putting them on paper and then getting pragmatic with it in terms of just executing one at a time, right? You're not going to knock all 100 of them out and then just literally saying that up just one at a time, take a break, come back to it. And there are moments where both of those methods still feel like this isn't cutting it. Right. And in those moments, I'll just stop and be still and let myself settle in, gather, and refocus. Sometimes if it's nice outside, that means taking a walk. I'll get on the phone, call my wife, check in, see how our day's going. Things that are unrelated that can just reset my attitude and my mental state and then get back to it.
I think that's beautiful.
Leadership comes with high expectations, too many responsibilities, too little time, and the constant pressure to keep up. If you're feeling stretched thin, you're not alone. At Engineer Your Success, we help leaders take back control so that they can lead with confidence, delegate effectively, and stop running on empty. You don't have to choose between success and sanity. Let's build a leadership plan that works for you. Visit engineeryoursuccessnow.com today because thriving isn't just for others, it's for you.
So another question that I have is, what role does faith play in your success in how you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And I actually should have led with that. During those moments where I'm just really at it, when I'm stopping, there's prayer in there too. Got to. Because a lot of times there are things that are out of your control. And when you understand that you aren't in control, that God's in control, it centers things in a way where you recognize that you don't have to be the one to solve all the problems. That's not necessarily it. And sometimes just knowing that there's somebody working on your behalf to solve the problem is settling. It is huge. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that that's a large part of it when I'm stressed and when I'm not. Right. So even when things are going well, just as much, if not more so, because if you've been stretched thin and then you've been chilling, you don't forget that feeling. You could easily be back there. So, being grateful for the season that you're in that moment and being able to make the most of it.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about leadership and talking about career and profession, we don't always think about talking about our faith or our beliefs in the role that it plays. And I think in the past, I created an artificial disconnect where I would talk about all of these other issues and things I would do, but I wouldn't talk about my faith in my beliefs in the role that plays. And even as an entrepreneur, probably by the time this episode airs, I would have been in full-time entrepreneurship for 3 years. Faith plays a big role in what I do and how I do it. It's even gotten to the point where recently this year, probably since February, it's been more of a thought process or a position or posture of, God, you own this business, you own this practice. Instead of me coming up with all of the things that I want to do and assuming that you're going to bless it and it's come along with what I want, it's taking all of that and saying, yes, I build plans. Yes, this is what I think I want to do, but ultimately it's up to you because it's your business. So God, lead me, guide me in the way that you would have me to go. If the plans need to change, let them change. I'm not married to the plans. I'm married to that relationship with God.
It is important. It's one of those things where it's like, for me, that manifests so often is that God will use my wife to get a message to me. It may be nice, it may not be as nice, but the message will get there. And it's
Yep.
always something that I needed that I didn't know that I needed. Or maybe I did. It's crazy because I'll be in my own head and then she'll say something and I'll be like, I didn't even tell you that yet. How did you know? I'm aware of that. I sit still long enough to be able to know that that is the conduit that I've been receiving message pivotal. Even making the career transition, was a big one, right? And there's been a few others, applying for certain awards or speech writing and those types of things that is come through her.
As leaders, you want to authentically be yourself. Well, if your faith and beliefs are a part of you, then when we exclude that, we're not being authentic. We're just not. Now, I understand that there are certain things that we have to be conscious of when you're in a leadership position. You don't want to seem like you're forcing your beliefs on other people. However, you are who you are. And it's understanding how can you show up authentically as yourself in points of stress, in points of doubt, in points of triumph, in points of celebration, 100% of all of you.
Yeah. And that's really important because the thing is, if you're wearing a mask, you're inauthentic and going through something, now you got to balance the facade that you put on in the issue. So now you battle in two fronts.
Yes, you do. Talk a little bit more about how mentorship played a role in that transition.
I've had a lot of conversations about my path and growth. I
Mhm.
actually had someone who was a mentor who was, it was more of they were deterring me, but it was from a place of love and care, not from, and so for me, hearing their reasons, right? Some of their things were things I hadn't thought about. And so what it did, it allowed me to say, okay, I received that. And now let me go either work on it or dig into it and see if it's validated or just their perception. It may be something that I would have never uncovered and flushed out to confirm that that's not even an issue.
So earlier in our conversation, you talked about the role of preparation. When you see a gap, you take the steps and put the work in to fill the gap. Have you always been this way?
I would like to think so, but if I'm being transparent with myself, I don't know. I would say yes to some extent, but it's definitely more refined now as I've gotten more seasoned in my life. The level of preparation is different, right? I take it back to college. I became a much better studier my last 2 years. before I was kind of like, let's put the book in front of me. Whatever happens, I kind of go through it. Towards the end, it was down to, okay, these are my study snacks. These are one of the 2 places I'm going to study. This is the time I'm going to study at. Getting it down to that granular level of details, because I knew that's what created an environment of success for me. And that same thing carried into my professional career, understanding, going to resume workshops, constantly refining, tinkering, and mock interviews. I participate in those same things now, at least 3-4 times a year, because those students are putting in the work to, constantly refine. And even if some of them have jobs already, they're there saying, hey, I just want to go through, a mock interview session just to make sure my skills are sharp. And I see myself in them in that way. I'm honored to serve as that resource to help them continue to sharpen their skills.
And you have a person who is interested in finding a mentor, and you have individual A who comes to the meeting or contacts that potential mentor, having done some background work on where they are and where they want to go. They've put in some effort. You have a potential mentee number 2 who just has a name and is calling and saying, hey, I would love to explore having you as a mentor. Which one do you think is more likely to have a positive conversation?
Both of them. It's a different conversation though. And I say that because I've had that somebody through a connection of AGC introduced me. They text me and said, hey, I have somebody who's looking for a mentor. Are you willing to talk to them? And I got a call later this afternoon, and it's just a name. So I don't know how much preparation she's done, but for me, it's going to be a conversation. If she hasn't, that could be a starting point of the conversation. Because I've had mentees who are looking for jobs. Have you looked up the role? Have you looked up what they paid? Have you looked up all the variables and nuances around it? No? Okay, we're going to focus our conversation here. And then for, mentee A, the person we mentioned, who is prepared, who has those things in the role, it allows us to have a deeper conversation specifically on their task at hand, what their goal is, and what they're looking to execute. And so there's value in both. Actually, I will work with mentee B to get up to that point where they have refined their goals so they can have that level of conversation. There's so much value in that.
I, I love it.
Dialed in.
You are not leaving anybody behind.
No.
That's the reality. You are not going to leave anybody behind. Here are the steps that you need to take to get there.
Not on my watch. Not on my watch. I tell when I go to career fairs or keynotes for students, and I tell students all the time at the end of talks, add me on LinkedIn. I may not be able to help you if you're not in my direct field or an adjacent field, but I may know somebody who can. Add me. Stay connected. I will always accept students because that's them putting themselves out there and asking for help and taking the next step of actually doing it, right? How much friction is it to look up somebody's name on LinkedIn? They've even made it easier to scan the QR code and it pops up on your phone. It speaks volumes when somebody can take that little step and actually make the connection and then send a message to say, hey, thank you for talking. I would love to talk about whatever. Those are the people who get it already at a younger age, even if they don't recognize it.
So did you at any time in your career have an issue?
My issue was being able to contain my ambition. That was an issue for me when I was an intern 6 years when I worked for Kaiser, and one of the directors, he was like, he's like, ambition is an incredible thing, but you have to harness it because if left unchecked, it could detract you and put you further away from your goals. And that's something that stuck with me in terms of how we prepare. When I first started full-time as a project engineer, the VP of operations at the time, he goes, oh, well, what do you want to do? And I said, oh, well, I want your job, right? Fast forward 13 years, here we are. At that time, I knew the goal. I didn't know all the steps and the ins and outs to get there. That was my ambition speaking for me, but I didn't have the preparation. And for me, it was getting to that point where my ambition and my preparation aligned. And that's the sweet spot that I'm blessed to be in right now and continuing to sharpen and refine.
Yeah, I think a story of mine is when I was younger in my career, you're managing projects, you have time for client interaction, and you can't understand why you're not in the room. Like, why am I not there? I should be there. until you actually get in the room. And then you get in the room and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be here right now. There's a level of political type conversation that happens in some of those rooms. When you're younger, you're just not seasoned enough to successfully navigate. You can listen in, but if you're letting ambition lead you, you don't want to just listen in. You want to contribute, right? Because you want everybody to know. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that ambition state.
Yeah, you could step into the wrong situation and be unaware. You don't know what you don't know. I completely understand that. It's almost like it's parts of it needs to be demystified, right? Because you
Mhm.
think about it and you see executives meeting. I can't think back to what I was thinking at the time, but it's like, ooh, what's happening there? Hamilton, right? In the room where it happened, right? He wanted to be in the room where it happened because he felt that's where decisions were made, the decision makers, the key players. And some of that may be true, but the reality is there's so much more going on outside that you could have impact on. Yeah.
And I think if I were to go back in time and think about my situation in that particular scenario, I would probably say, okay, do you really need to be there? Do you need to understand the context or what's happening around those meetings? Do you need to talk to the executives and the team to find out the struggles? What are the pain points? What are the issues that they're dealing with? So that if you do get the opportunity to go there, you're not uncovering landmines or doing something detrimental to the project.
Absolutely.
So listen, man, it's been absolutely great having the conversation with you. I've really enjoyed it. If someone wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm actually hiring right now as we build out our operations team. So I'm looking for project managers, assistant project managers, project engineers. LinkedIn would be the best way to find me.
All right. We will put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And as we begin to wrap things up, I like to turn things around to make you the interviewer and me the interviewee. What's one question that you have for me?
It's what keeps you motivated and keeps you pushing further.
What keeps me motivated and pushing further is I know there are people I can help and make an impact on. They're engineers, they're people with technical background who could benefit or are benefiting and can benefit from the resources and tools, the knowledge and the systems that I provide. More importantly, there's someone out there who can listen to the podcast or connect with me that knows that there's someone that sees them. Is that they're a person too. They struggle with these issues just like everybody else. They struggle with the family issues, the work issues. I want to be more productive, but I also want to have deeper relationships at home. I don't know how to successfully navigate this. They struggle with the I want to grow in this next executive level career wise, but I'm just not sure because when I'm in the meetings, X happens. These different things happen. And what keeps me going is one of my values is to provide value in every interaction. So whether it's on LinkedIn, a discovery call, a client meeting, coaching session, whatever it is, my goal is to continue to provide value. And I think I'm in a position to do that. And that keeps me going.
Beautifully put. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you as well. I'm going to end the episode like I end every episode, and that's this. Many people know what to do. Fewer people know how to do it. And there's a select group of people that follow through and do it, and they're able to live the life of their dreams. Babatunde, I want to thank you for being part of that select few.
Appreciate it.